seats, we can do much better.
With the exception of Zubair Ahmed in Glasgow South West, it's a very white group too, isn't it?
That's right. We had one woman of colour that was elected that unfortunately she has lost her seat. But what parties need to do is to reach out to a much wider, diverse range of people and not just point to them when it's election time, but actually support them and put them in winnable seats.
And Jim, relations between the UK and Scottish governments really deteriorated from the kind of Boris Johnson era onwards. When you were advising Gordon Brown on the Constitution, how important would you say that relationship between Scotland and Westminster is?
Well, you've got two governments and they're both supposed to serve the people of Scotland, so they've got to work together. And for the last decade or so, that has not been going well. And the reason for that actually is the underlying politics. It suited both the SNP and the Conservatives to fight with one another. The Conservatives like to threaten their voters with the SNP, and the SNP like to blame the Conservatives.
So does the new Labour-SNP dynamic change things? Do they have to work together?
They ought to work together, and they should work together, and I think they might, because the dynamic will be quite different. An important difference is that the Labour Party now has a majority of MPs in Scotland.
OK, and well, with the Holyrood 2026 elections less than 2 years away now, how that relationship plays out may well be crucial. John.
Gordon in Edinburgh, thank you. Colin, we're just hearing there about how Holyrood and Westminster might work together, how it has or hasn't in the past. Now, we have a Scottish minority government in Holyrood, albeit an independence majority with the Greens. We've now got a Labour majority at Westminster. Will things be different? How do you see this moving forward?
You know, the relationship between the UK and the Scottish governments has hit an all-time low over the last parliamentary term. It was strained under Theresa May. It was utterly trashed under Boris Johnson. I mean, think of the Brexit battles, the rows during COVID, the fights over gender reform and the deposit return scheme. Now, the unions tonight are calling for cooperation between the two governments. And Sir Keir Starmer and John Swinney are political grown-ups. They know that they're going to have to work together on issues like migration, for example, where they've hinted that they might, on things like trying to save jobs at Grangemouth. Ian Murray is going to be heavily involved in that as Scottish Secretary. He's a fairly wily political operator. But you know what? There are plenty points of conflict still to come, particularly the funding of public services. Labour's manifesto only promised an extra 300 million or so to Scotland. The SNP say they need more.
Colin, for the moment, thank you for that. Now for something completely different. Plenty of people have been up all night and all day picking over the election results. But for some in Glasgow, the fallout from the 4th of July was only about one thing: fried chicken. Our plucky reporter, Ronnie Charters, joined the hungry mob picking the bones of the election.
Yesterday they were queuing at the polls. Today, however, they're queuing for chicken, as the country comes to terms with the political earthquake caused by this general election. It's fair to say the result has ruffled a few feathers. But the big question really is, do voters really give a cluck about this general election result?
If I'm honest with you, it's not what we'd all really like, I suppose, was it? But it is what it is.
It was fair for Labour. We've had Conservatives run the government for over 12 years, and there has to be change.
It came as no surprise. We're ready for a change, and we needed that change to happen. So, yeah, whether it's the right one or not.
And the biggest question of the day: are you getting a bit of free chicken? You realise that by the time you've been in this queue, we've had one Conservative Prime Minister leave, another Labour Prime Minister arrive. That's pretty good going, considering you're in a queue for chicken, isn't it?
Aye, it definitely is. The sun is definitely shining on hopefully a grateful country.
You've probably had a few general elections in your time. What was your thoughts on the open? No.
Thank you.
Not in a bad way, of course. But your thoughts on did this one feel different in the run-up to it or anything like that?
Well, actually, to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't really watch much about it anyway.
No. Scotland for me.
SNP?
Yeah, SNP.
Are you a bit disappointed with their result? They didn't do too well.
Not really disappointed.
And how did you watch the general election last night?
I fell asleep.
You did not.
I told you.
And as the countdown finished and doors opened, the events of the last 24 hours were front and centre. the seismic political drama still top of the menu as voters come to terms with the results.
I hope he does something, because the last Labour ones that was in didn't do anything, and it was all false promises.
I mean, look, we've had over a decade of Conservative rule. I think, in a sense, you reap what you sow. They've dropped the ball, and Labour's had the opportunity to pick it back up, and they did.
So for the last 6 weeks, it's fair to say politicians and parties alike have been running around like headless chickens looking for your vote. But now we know what's been served up on the menu for the next 5 years. It's a case of out of the frying pan into the fire for Keir Starmer and Labour as they rule the roost. Ronnie Charters, STV News in Glasgow.
Cliche-tastic piece there from Ronnie about the voters' view. Well, as we near the end of our election special, let's go back to Paris in Westminster. Paris, for some final reflections.
Well, I'll happily give you some nuggets of wisdom, John, but before I do, we've had some more cabinet appointments confirmed. Pat McFadden, a Scottish MP representing a seat in England, is going to be Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, key role in relations with Scotland. Also, David Lammy continues in his role as Foreign Secretary, and Yvette Cooper will be Home Secretary. What I'd say is I've been reporting here at Westminster for nearly 10 years now. In that period, we've had incredible turbulence during this Conservative government: financial crisis, the Scottish referendum, the Brexit referendum, COVID, and of course the war in Ukraine. Keir Starmer says he wants to restore calm. He wants to remove performance from politics. That's easier said than done, with Nigel Farage in Parliament and Boris Johnson potentially waiting in the wings.
Paris at Westminster, thank you for all of that. Colin, you've been through it all. What's your final assessment?
I think a lot of SNP voters stayed at home yesterday. They weren't motivated. Nicola Sturgeon had wanted that election to be, if you remember, a de facto referendum on independence. Do you know what? If John Swinney had gone along with that strategy, I think it might have been the only thing that could have made it worse for him. There will be criticism of his leadership, but I don't think it is under any threat. He knows that he has to rebuild public trust. He has to refocus on delivery. But you know what? It's not going to be plain sailing for Labour either. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has a huge majority, almost 2/3 of the seats in the House of Commons, but he only got about 1/3 of the vote. Now, when Tony Blair won his huge landslide in 1997, he had 45% of the vote. Even Jeremy Corbyn in 2017 got 40% of the vote. Now, this suggests to me there is no great love among the electorate for Keir Starmer. So it's all about delivery for him too, I think. People need to see Labour make a difference. They need to see it happen soon. Otherwise, this great political pendulum could swing the other way at the next election. And you know what? Campaigning is already underway, particularly in Labour, for the 2026 Holyrood election.
Callan, no, I must say, it's been a long day. Thanks for your contribution there, Callan. Thank you. And that's all from this STV News election special. Labour are back in power in the United Kingdom. Sir Keir Starmer is our new Prime Minister. The Conservatives have collapsed. The SNP dominance has ended. It has been a memorable election, one of those that will be a reference point in the future. So here are some lasting images from the 24 election.
The exit poll is here. It is predicting a Labour landslide.
We did it! Today we start the next chapter, begin the work of change, the mission of national renewal, and start to rebuild our country.
The Labour Party has won this general election, and I have called Sir Keir Starmer to congratulate him on his victory. Today, power will change hands in a peaceful and orderly manner, with goodwill on all sides.
Obviously, there's a huge setback to the Scottish National Party by these results tonight. In no shape or form am I denying that. This is a big challenge for the SNP. We've got to learn lessons from this.
This is affecting Conservative candidates all across the United Kingdom. I ran this campaign both locally and nationally, and I accept my share of the responsibility as well.
I want change not just at Westminster, we need change here in Holyrood too, and we're going to work really hard, yes, to deliver from a UK Labour government, but also to prepare the case for change for 2026.
To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry. You have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change. I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility.
Now our country has voted decisively for change, but have no doubt that the work of change begins immediately, until you believe again.
Expect clear blue seas, followed by prolonged periods of, how on earth did they build that? TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Good afternoon. Well, it comes as no surprise to find out we're on the cold side of the jet stream. To the north of it, all the warm air to the south. Temperatures for us a good few degrees below average for the time of year. Spain and Portugal, 5 to 6 degrees above average. For us, we stay north of the jet, which does mean we hang on to that cooler air. Although hopefully during the weekend when the sunshine comes out with lighter winds, it should start to feel a wee bit better. Temperatures about 15, 16, well below still where they could be at this time of year. But some cold nights ahead. I expect we could get temperatures down to about 4 or 5 degrees in the next couple of nights. Tonight, quite a chilly one. Temperatures 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. We'll hang on to some showers out there through the rest of this afternoon, most of them easing as we go into the evening. So most of us largely dry overnight. But then into tomorrow, quite a lot of showers developing. Some of them could be on the heavy side. Probably a more prolonged spell of rain across some central and eastern parts for a time. We've got a weather front coming in from the north. Probably the best of the sunshine during the afternoon, but still a crop of showers across likes of Argyll and Butte. Temperatures very disappointing, 13 or 14 degrees and feeling particularly cool in those passing showers. On Sunday, fewer showers around, more in the way of sunshine. Again, not feeling too bad in those sunny spells, highs of 16.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
What happened? Were they okay? Are they okay? I have got a brother out there somewhere.
Who found us?
Your son's been found.
Oh my God! They're your cousins.
Long Lost Family returns Monday at 9 on STV and STV Player.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors STV Pollen Count.
Now, even though we are right at the very peak of the grass pollen season, given the fact we've got a north to northwesterly airflow, the pollen levels are on the low side. We've got the showers, we've got the wind around as well. So those pollen levels remaining low and staying that way right across the UK throughout the weekend. Bye-bye.
At Tombola, there's a bingo winner every 5 seconds. Play from 1p to £2 and you could be one of our winners.
I've won 500 on bingo night before and I was like, that's it, I'm having a weekend away.
With £7 million won every week. Could you be next? Only at Tombola.
The Miller family know stuff. They know that today they'll breeze into the heart of London for less than you'd think. They know they can catch up on a book, a podcast, or an alien splatting session from their comfortable reclining seats. They also know not to stare directly into the eyes of Zalahula. If you know, you go. National Express.
Say a big hello to the Sterling Homes Summer Sale with fabulous savings in store and online. Plus this weekend only, an extra 5% off everything.
We all know we need to plan, whether it's for the garden